Harper stepped through the front door of her childhood home in the quiet suburbs of Lexington, Massachusetts, juggling a basket of wine bottles, cranberry tarts, and gift boxes wrapped in shimmering silver. The Christmas Eve chill bit through her coat, but it still didn't compare to the emotional frost she expected to face once inside. Every year she hoped for something different, and every year the same judgmental tone returned this time, though she didn't expect it to come in the form of a family vote. Around the oak dining table sat her entire family. Her parents, Martin and Elaine Prescott, comfortably retired but ever indulgent. Her brother Scott, his wife Lindsay, and their 3 kids. Her sister Jenna and her husband Brian, with their 2 children dressed in matching outfits. 16 people squeezed around a table decked with crystal glasses, red candles, and the good china. For the first hour, dinner went smoothly. Roast turkey drizzled with gravy golden rolls, and polite small talk filled the air. Harper shared a quick update on her promotion at a Boston tech firm. A few nods. No follow-up. The conversation swiftly returned to Emma's Christmas ballet and Jake's wiggly baby tooth. Then it happened. Her father cleared his throat and spoke with unsettling calm. We had a little family discussion. Martin began, his voice tinged with smugness. And we agreed since Harper doesn't have kids, she'll be helping fund the rest of ours. Silence fell like a dropped plate. Lindsay paused mid-bite, and Jenna looked like she'd tasted something sour. Harper froze, her polite smile wilting. "Excuse me," she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Martin repeated more confidently. "We voted for Councilman Price. He supports a local tax hike for households without kids. That money goes towards schools and child services. Makes sense. You're single, no dependents, time to pitch in more for actual families." Scott chuckled. "Having kids is expensive, Harper. You wouldn't get it." Jenna chimed in with a soft jab. "There are more important things in life than work and solo vacations." Harper's hands clenched under the table. She'd heard versions of this before, but tonight felt different, like something deep inside her had cracked. She set down her fork, reached for her phone under the table, steadying herself with its cold surface. They had no idea what was coming. Harper didn't speak. She scanned the table, these people she had silently supported for years, now treating her like a convenient wallet. A part of her wanted to scream, "I paid your tuition, covered your roof repairs, gave you Disney vacations, and this is what I get," but she swallowed it. Again, Elaine tried to soften the blow. "Martin, maybe that's enough. It's Christmas." Martin shrugged. "It's not an attack. It's economics. Harper's got a 6-figure job and lives alone in a penthouse. Our kids are raising the next generation." Harper forced a thin smile. She thought about the $15,000 she'd sent for Scott's tuition bills, the $12,000 deposit for Jenna's new kitchen. She remembered every check, every transfer. What she couldn't recall was a genuine thank you. "So if I don't have a family," she said quietly, "then everything I've done for you all doesn't count, right?" Nobody answered. "I need to use the restroom," she added, pushing back her chair. Her voice stayed calm, but something in her eyes had shifted. Inside the guest bathroom, Harper stared at her reflection. Her lipstick was still perfect, but her expression wasn't. Her phone buzzed a notification, $1,000 transferred to Martin and Elaine's account. She opened her finance app. Line after line of unacknowledged generosity stared back at her. Something clicked. Maybe it was time they saw what her childless lifestyle really paid for. Harper had always been the different one. While other teenage girls taped boy band posters on their walls, hers were lined with circuit diagrams and programming flowcharts. While Scott collected football trophies and Jenna took the lead in school plays, Harper was tinkering with code and computers. Graduating top of her class from MIT, she quickly landed a position at a top-tier software firm in Boston. Within 5 years, she was leading a development team with a salary surpassing $200,000 annually, not including bonuses and stock options. Her penthouse apartment in Seaport overlooked the harbor, sparkling at night. Her life was full solo travel, personal projects, a tight-knit circle of friends. She was fulfilled, but in her family's eyes, Harper remained the daughter without children. Each promotion met with "must be nice when you don't have kids." Each vacation must be freeing, not having responsibilities. Even her dream condo. Her father once said, all that space for just one person, and yet she had helped all of them. Scott and Lindsay had 3 kids, Emma, Jake, and Lily. Harper had paid for private school tuition, covered credit card debt when Lindsay lost her job, and paid for Jake's psychological assessment when insurance didn't. Jenna and her husband Brian had Sophia and Ethan. Harper had paid $12,000 for roof repairs, $10,000 for a replacement minivan, and $4,500 for emergency dental surgery. Her parents, Martin and Elaine, despite retirement funds, often overspent. During a downturn, Harper sent $2,000 monthly so they wouldn't sell their house. She funded their $25,000 kitchen remodel, a loan never repaid. Last summer's Disneyland trip, Harper covered it all. Airfare, hotels, park tickets, food, over $30,000. She did it out of love, not obligation. Yet at every family gathering, while the others celebrated real life, Harper was the outsider. No kids, no family, just extra money. Harper never set out to track every dollar. But for tax and budget purposes, she had a dedicated finance category, family support. Each transfer noted: January $15,000 for Emma and Jake's school, March $1,000 for Jenna's new car, June $30,000 for the Disneyland trip, October $4,500 for emergency surgery. She never asked for repayment. But that night, staring at the $1,000 auto transfer confirmation on her phone, Harper felt something deeper than frustration, a betrayal. The last thank you from Jenna was last year for Sophia's swim lessons. Scott recently said no one forced you to help. The dinner remark that she should contribute more to society was the breaking point. Not only was she being judged, she was being used. In truth, it was Harper who had been propping up the very definition of family they claimed she didn't understand. She remembered the one time her father said, "I'm proud of you," during Grandma's birthday, just after Harper had gifted him and Elaine an $18,000 cruise to Alaska. Since then, nothing. Harper had once believed that quiet sacrifice would earn recognition. But tonight proved otherwise. And maybe it was time they all learned her extra money had been their survival plan. Harper never considered what she did extraordinary. For her helping family was a given, no spotlight needed. But over time, those acts of support had grown into something larger, an invisible scaffolding holding up her entire family unnoticed, and worse, unacknowledged. Opening her finance tracker, she scrolled through the family support tab. The records were precise. Feb 2021, $900 for Jake's specialized psychological testing. June 2021, $4,500 for Brian's emergency dental surgery. Aug 2021, $3,200 for Sophia's STEM summer camp. Nav 2021, $2,000 for her parents' new washer and dryer. She ran the totals. Harper felt dizzy. 2020, $98, $200. 2021, $126, $700. 2022, $139, $500. 2023, $147, $800. 2024 to Des, $142, $50. 5-year total over $650,000, enough to buy a large home or send all 5 kids to college. What hurt Harper most wasn't the amount, it was the fact that none of it had ever been called what it was, a contribution. To her family, it was natural. She was child-free, unburdened, of course she could help. But no one ever asked if she wanted to, if she could, if she was okay. She remembered Jenna's tearful call one snowy night, car broken down, kids in the back seat. Harper had wired $10,000 before sunrise, or Scott's blunt texts need help with tuition. Urgent. She never refused. But no one ever asked, "Are you okay, Harper?" Perhaps the cruelest part wasn't being used, it was being erased. Harper existed in their lives like a walking debit card, but she was invisible in family stories. When they praised sacrifice, it was Mom juggling the kids, Dad working overtime, or Jenna being a supermom, never Harper. At Scott's high school reunion, he introduced her with a laugh. "This is my sister Harper. She's got the fun single life, lots of travel, no kids. Not lead engineer, not pillar of support, not the one who's kept our heads above water. Just single and probably rich." Harper had once secretly planned Emma's 10th birthday around a space theme with VR goggles and a custom rocket model team. When Jake struggled with language skills, she was the one who found a specialist, paid for therapy, and coordinated appointments. No one remembered those, but they remembered Harper goes to Europe twice a year and she doesn't get real responsibility. Harper didn't crave applause, but she longed to be seen not as the unmarried aunt, but as someone who showed up. Each holiday that passed made it clearer. They valued her money, not her presence. And now after that dinner, that cruel, smug vote, Harper knew if she didn't draw a line, she'd break. She opened her spreadsheet. Every dollar a small wound. No rage, no theatrics, just clarity. She clicked export to PDF. The file name blinked back. 5 years of support, Harper Prescott. She was done hiding. Harper used to believe that offhand family comments held little weight, but over time she realized the deepest wounds come not from cruelty, but from casual concern laced with quiet judgment. "You'll regret not having kids someday," her mom once said gently over tea while holding an electric bill Harper had silently paid. "What's the point of money if you've got no one to leave it to?" her father muttered once, admiring a photo of his first grandson. Jenna, during a school drop-off, said with a half smile, "You can fly to Paris any time. I envy that, but truthfully, you don't know what it's like to live for someone else." Scott would often gesture toward his kids playing in the backyard. "They give me purpose. What's money worth if no one calls you Dad at night?" Harper had brushed it off, until it built up like tiny fractures in glass, and this Christmas it finally cracked. She thought back birthdays she wasn't invited to, family photos she wasn't in, recital invitations sent last minute like an afterthought. She didn't crave grand gestures. All Harper had ever wanted was recognition, to be treated as part of the family's core, not as an accessory, and certainly not as the financier. Every word, every pitying look, every polite smile when she spoke about her career all left a subtle bruise. Harper's success wasn't celebrated, it became an inconvenience, as if she'd picked the wrong lane in the highway of life. Even things she was proud of, the disability accessibility app she led, the tech conference where she was a keynote speaker, were dismissed with, "That's nice, but at the end of the day you still go home alone, right?" She remembered one Christmas when little Emma handed out cards she'd drawn of our whole family. Harper wasn't in it. When asked why, Emma said, "I wasn't sure if Aunt Harper counted. She doesn't live with us and she only brings gift." Harper smiled. Later that night, she cried alone in her apartment. The pain didn't come from Emma, but from the lesson the family had clearly taught the child that Harper was outside the circle. Then came that dinner. Her father's smug declaration, "Since you don't have kids, you'll pay for ours." No one disagreed. No one said, "That's not fair." Their silence hit harder than any insult. Harper looked around the table at people she loved and suddenly couldn't find her place among them. Not because she was different, but because they'd never tried to understand her. In that moment, she realized she wasn't afraid of being misunderstood anymore. She was afraid of continuing to tolerate it. Harper sat alone in the bathroom of the house she once called home now, just a stage where her generosity had become an unspoken tax. Fluorescent light cast pale reflections across her carefully done makeup, a mask to cover years of invisible fractures. Her phone buzzed gently, a familiar notification, $1,000 transferred to Martin and Elaine Prescott. She stared at it. No anger, just nothing. She opened her finance app and scrolled through the year's entries. Every line told a story: a snowy night, when Jenna's car broke down, a summer panic call from Scott about tuition, her mother's tearful gratitude for the cruise, followed by, "But I still hope you'll give us grandbabies." How many times was enough, she asked herself. There was no answer, only a total over $650,000 in 5 years. It hadn't bankrupted her, but it had drained her trust, her dignity, her ability to pretend this wasn't happening. She splashed her face reapplied lipstick and looked in the mirror, not to fix her makeup, but to really see herself. She no longer wanted to be quietly kind. When she returned to the dining table, Harper smiled calmly. She engaged in small talk about ski trips, asked the kids about their wish lists. But in her mind, a plan was already forming, not out of revenge, but to finally end the silent contract she never signed. After excusing herself with a polite, "Just a bit of a headache," Harper grabbed her coat and drove back to the hotel. She hadn't stayed overnight at her parents' home in years, a choice her family called cold, but one she knew was self-preservation. The streets of Boston glowed with holiday lights, but there was no warmth in them for her tonight. Her mind replayed a different kind of list: pending gift orders, recurring payments, and one cold, clear question. What happens if I stop? The answer wasn't a sentence, it was a feeling. A lifting. Like for the first time in years, she had permission to choose herself. At the hotel, Harper opened her laptop. The blue light lit her face, now free of the performance. She logged into email, banks, accounts, and step by step, click by click, she began dismantling the invisible web that had trapped her in responsible daughter mode for nearly a decade. Canceled the $18,000 Alaska cruise for her parents. Called off the $7,500 home theater system for Scott. Stopped the $15,000 school tuition payment. Emailed the school withdrawing sponsorship for her nieces and nephews. Emailed the contractor funding for Jenna's kitchen renovation was rescinded. Then the fixed payments. Monthly parent deposits canceled. Family vacation fund deleted. Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime for the entire family revoked. Finally, she opened her spreadsheet, family support, 5 years, detailed by person, purpose, amount, and date. She saved it. Sent herself a PDF. Then, with quiet conviction, Harper booked a flight to Bora Bora, leaving that very Christmas night. No one knew, no one was told, but in the morning they would find out. It was 11 p.m. in the hotel. Harper sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop glowing in the dim light. Outside, Christmas lights flickered across the Boston skyline, a holiday rhythm she no longer felt part of. There were no carols, no kids, no warmth, only clarity and resolve. She pulled up her gift order history, every item still marked pending. It felt like the universe itself was pausing, waiting to see if she'd continue carrying this unspoken burden. She began with the biggest one, Alaska cruise for her parents, $18,000. She called the agency, confirmed cancellation, and requested a refund. When asked why, she replied simply, "My family's plans changed." Truthfully, her boundaries changed. Next, Scott's home theater system, $7,500. Jenna's kitchen renovation deposit, $12,000. She emailed the contractors attached cancellation notices and wrote, "Any further decisions or payments must be coordinated with the homeowners. I'm no longer the financial sponsor." With each step, Harper didn't feel guilt. She felt unhooked, as if every click removed another nail from a cross she'd been carrying for years. By 1 a.m., Harper moved to the next phase, recurring support, the invisible strings that kept the illusion alive. She logged into her bank. $2,000 month to her parents canceled. $500 quarterly tuition transfers canceled. Family vacation savings auto deposit deleted. Netflix, Disney Plus, Spotify family plans terminated. She composed brief formal emails to every institution involved: schools, contractors, banks, streaming services. To whom it may concern, I am officially withdrawing all financial commitments previously associated with the Prescott family. From this point forward, all obligations are to be managed directly by the relevant parties. Respectfully, Harper Prescott. Finally, she opened her 5-year contribution spreadsheet: names, dates, purposes, totals, a ledger of silent giving. She saved it as a PDF with a simple title: Family Support Ledger. 5 years Harper Prescott. She attached it to a draft email. She didn't send it yet, but it was ready. At 3 a.m., Harper switched her phone to airplane mode, closed the laptop, and lay back into the pillows. For the first time in years, she slept without setting an alarm for anyone else. Tomorrow was Christmas, but this year her only gift was freedom. Harper woke at 5 a.m. No alarm needed. She didn't feel festive like a child on Christmas morning, nor abandoned like someone exiled from family. What she felt was calm. She brewed coffee in her hotel room, quietly sipping as she reopened the draft email, the one with the attached PDF: 5 years of support. The Prescott family. She didn't send it. Not yet. She packed lightly. No gifts. No cards. Just a few soft clothes, books, sunscreen, and her passport. Her flight had been confirmed the night before Bora Bora, with a stop in Los Angeles. A gift to herself. Before leaving the hotel, she sent one short group message. Something urgent came up. I won't make it this morning. Gifts will arrive later. Merry Christmas. No explanation, no apology, no oversharing. She silenced her phone. For the first time in years, Harper refused to justify her absence. At Logan Airport, the holiday rush felt oddly comforting. She blended in, just another traveler. Not the woman behind every mortgage payment, birthday, or emergency fund. As the plane lifted into the sunrise, Harper looked out her window and exhaled. This is my first Christmas. For me. In first class, a flight attendant offered her champagne with a smile. Traveling to visit family? Harper smiled back, serene. No, just a vacation, solo. No excuses, no shame. Just a truth she finally allowed herself to live. At the refueling stop in Los Angeles, Harper turned her phone back on. Within moments, it buzzed with missed calls, texts, and emails from her entire family. She didn't open them yet. Instead, she sat quietly at an airport cafe sipping black coffee while watching departure boards flicker. Last year this hour, I was still labeling gifts for 13 people, she thought. This year, she sat alone and felt peace. When she did scan the messages, the pattern was clear. Where are the gifts? The kids are upset. Are you really not coming? The school called. Tuition's unpaid. What's going on? Harper smiled faintly. No resentment, no satisfaction, just weightlessness. She sent one reply, the only one they'd get for now. I'm safe, on vacation. We'll explain later. Then she boarded her connecting flight. Bora Bora was waiting. No obligations, no expectations. Just Harper and herself. 7 a.m. on Christmas morning. The Prescott home should have been filled with the sound of laughter, ripped wrapping paper, and kids squealing with joy. Instead, the atmosphere was heavy, anxious, like a storm about to hit. Scott stared at his phone, his face draining of color. Westlake Academy just emailed. The kids' tuition payment didn't go through. They want confirmation by January 3rd. Lindsay froze. Didn't Harper already take care of that? Jenna walked out of the kitchen, coffee trembling in her hand. The kitchen contractor just called. Said Harper pulled all funding. If we don't replace the money in 48 hours, he's canceling the job. The room fell silent. Elaine turned on the TV, hoping to distract the kids, but no one watched. Martin sat in his chair, unmoving, as if waking from a dream he couldn't quite make sense of. As the kids ran to check the gifts labeled from Aunt Harper, they found only empty space under the tree. No gaming console for Jake, no piano for Emma, no giant playhouse for Ethan. Everything vanished, Madison whispered, and with that confusion turned into alarm. Messages flooded Harper's phone, all unread. She was mid-flight to Bora Bora, phone in airplane mode, emotionally and physically miles away. Back in Massachusetts, the Prescott household began to fracture. Jenna refreshed their shared bank account. The usual $1,000 from Harper was missing. Scott tried Netflix. A red error screen popped up. This account has been canceled. Harper's parents received a notification from their bank. Automatic housing payment failed. No one had the full picture, but everyone understood one thing: Harper had cut them off. First came anger. She's punishing us over one dinner. How petty. Skipping Christmas out of pride. But then email after email, transaction after transaction, contractor calls, tuition notices. The full truth emerged. They weren't just relying on Harper, they'd built their lives on her. Martin, once so vocal about self-sufficiency, said nothing. There were no speeches left to give. Lindsay slumped to the floor, exhaling. We treated Harper's help like it was a given, not a gift. And just like that, recognition dawned. Not through guilt, but through real-life collapse. When Harper's plane landed in Bora Bora, she kept her phone in airplane mode for several more hours. The shuttle carried her across wooden bridges, over turquoise waters, past palm trees swaying lazily in the warm breeze. No pings, no vibrations, no obligations. She checked in, received a welcome drink, and finally settled onto a deck chair at her private villa. Only then, coconut water in hand, sun soft on her shoulders, did she unlock her phone. 84 messages, 36 missed calls, 17 emails. She didn't rush to read them. Instead, she opened Spotify, played a quiet piano concerto, and watched the sky slowly melt from blue to gold. Later that evening, Harper scrolled. Jenna, I'm sorry. I truly didn't realize how much I've relied on you. Scott, we need to talk. Emma was really upset about the piano not arriving. Elaine, Mom. Your father hasn't been sleeping. He says he crossed a line. Martin, Dad. When you're ready, I owe you a real apology. They must have seen the spreadsheet. Maybe someone had found her draft and shared it. Several messages referenced the numbers, the truth laid bare. For the first time, Harper sensed they knew. But did they understand? The next morning, Harper received an email from her father. Subject line, formal apology. In it, Martin wrote, I spoke carelessly from a place of ignorance and pride. What's worse, I benefited from your sacrifices all these years while simultaneously dismissing your life choices. Next came a message from Jenna. Brian and I looked over our finances. It's embarrassing how dependent we've been on you. We didn't even see it. Then Scott emailed. Emma asked why the piano didn't come. I had no answer. I think for the first time I realized how much I've taken you for granted. Harper read each one. She didn't cry, but her heart, long hardened, felt something crack. Still, she knew better than to confuse remorse with redemption. A sorry, no matter how sincere, couldn't erase years of silence, dismissal, and quiet entitlement. She didn't want gratitude. She wanted change. So she didn't reply. Not yet. She wasn't going to respond in the heat of emotion. She needed to see, could they turn those words into actions. In her travel notebook, she wrote one line. Forgiveness doesn't start with, I'm sorry. It starts when the hurt isn't repeated. She closed the notebook, placed it on the table, and walked barefoot down to the beach. White sand, blue waves, and space to begin again. As the apologies continued trickling in during her stay, Harper didn't reply, not because she was angry, but because she needed time to reflect. What exactly would it take to begin again? On the villa's sun-warmed balcony, she pulled out the worn brown journal she'd had for years and wrote not a list of conditions for forgiveness, but boundaries for survival. No more recurring financial support. All assistance must be formal documented and time-limited. No negative comments about my single or child-free life. My success is not spare freedom, it's personal achievement. My time is valuable, not always flexible for others. These weren't demands. They were minimum standards for being treated as a full human being. She realized if she were to have family again, she couldn't return in the old role. She'd have to re-enter with a new position, not the silent provider, but someone who chose healthy connection with limits. Back in Boston, Harper didn't avoid her family, but she didn't rush in to rescue anyone either. She scheduled individual meetings beginning with her parents. At their first sit-down, Elaine was teary-eyed. Martin was uncharacteristically quiet. But Harper opened calmly. No rage, no sarcasm. I'm open to rebuilding, but things will operate differently now. She outlined her boundaries clearly. Not hints, not implied lines, rules. Each person reacted in their own way. Jenna bit her lip, trying to nod. Scott asked questions, trying to negotiate. But Harper stood firm. For the first time, she didn't sit tall to defend, she sat tall to be rooted. She also announced, I'll be establishing educational trusts for the kids, but the parents will not have access. That's my promise to the next generation, not a lifelong bailout for yours. And she closed with, I don't need thanks. I need respect. Family is not a wallet. And in that moment, in those faces, she finally saw real listening. One Sunday afternoon in early January, Harper stepped onto her parents' porch with a steady heart. She carried no gifts, no obligations, only a new version of herself, grounded, clear, and no longer invisible. The door opened before she could knock. Her mother, Elaine, embraced her firmly, not dramatically, but sincerely. Her father, Martin, nodded without words, but in his eyes, recognition. The living room had been arranged in a circle. No holiday decorations, no plates of cookies, no distractions. One empty chair in the center reserved for Harper. No children, no TV, no avoidance, just honesty. Harper took her seat. All eyes on her, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. Scott spoke, first voice low. I've said a lot of wrong things, but today I'm starting by listening. Jenna pulled out an envelope. Inside a revised household budget for the first time without a Harper line item. Elaine handed Harper a folder, a letter from the bank, confirming the cancellation of the credit card they'd been using from Harper's account. From now on, we'll live within our retirement income. Harper nodded. She hadn't spoken yet, but inside something softened. After nearly 2 hours of quiet, respectful conversation, Harper finally spoke. Calm. Unshaken. I didn't come back for promises. I came to see what you've done and what you're willing to keep doing to show me these apologies weren't just panic. Scott nodded, pulling out another paper confirmation of trading in their oversized SUV for a more affordable car. We also enrolled the kids in a strong public school near us. No more private tuition. Jenna shared that she had gone back to full-time work. Brian had picked up contract projects. It's hard, but no one said growing up was supposed to be easy. Harper reached into her bag and pulled out 5 envelopes. Inside each, copies of education trust agreements for each of the children, professionally managed, untouchable, until college and beyond family reach. This isn't for you, it's for them. The kids aren't to blame. A respectful silence followed. No arguments, no tears, just acceptance. As she stood to leave, Harper paused at the door. I'll return if what I saw today becomes routine, not a guilt-driven exception. Her father spoke quietly but clearly. For the first time in my life, I understand what it means to respect a daughter. Harper smiled, not because she forgave, but because she was finally seen. February passed with subtle but steady change. Harper kept a healthy distance, not from pain, but by design. She was no longer retreating. She was allowing space for her family to learn how to stand on their own. Weekly dinners resumed, but with structure. No more last-minute expectations or assumptions that Harper would cover everything. Everyone brought a dish. Conversations widened, not just kids, but workbooks, travel, even politics, and for the first time, genuine curiosity about Harper's life. Jenna asked about the women in leadership panel Harper had spoken at. Scott requested tips for a small investment. Her parents didn't interrupt when she spoke of her projects. They listened, nodded, even asked follow-ups. There was still hesitation. Wounds don't vanish. But Harper didn't need perfect. She needed progress. And this wasn't the old family patched together. It was a new dynamic built from honest fragments. In March, Harper hosted a small gathering at her apartment. Not a birthday, not a holiday, just a choice. Her space, on her terms. The kids arrived with handmade thank you cards. Emma gave Harper a crayon drawing of her on a stage. Jake read a short presentation on AI with a proud ending, because Aunt Harper works on this. No one asked about money. No one expected anything. And Harper realized for the first time in years she had invited them into her life instead of being dragged into theirs. A week later, she received a handwritten letter from her father. You've given us a second chance, not with your money, but with your greatest gift, teaching us that no family survives without respect. She folded the letter, placed it in her nightstand. She knew hard conversations would still come. But now she entered each interaction as an equal, not a wallet, not a tag-along, but a daughter, a sister, an aunt, who deserved to be heard. Her old family, the one built on obligation, was gone, but a new family was forming, and this time Harper would decide how it was built.